And political analyst Quentin Giles. He's the host of the podcast Q with Q. Welcome back to BNC Live. You're like family.
Thank you. And it is always good to be at the family reunion.
Now, Quentin, I got to ask you, the Senate investigation of January 6th, that deadly insurrection, which is what it was by definition, as Ariana just told us,
Yes.
Reports were broad. Reports pointed out, better yet, broad failures on so many levels, including intelligence agencies knowing weeks in advance about the plans for this attack, but still we saw little preparation, or better yet, that's what we realized later on. Was this a surprise?
Right. You know, I think it's surprising to people consuming this information now, learning of the widespread systematic failures of law enforcement when these insurrectionists, these domestic terrorists, plotted out in the open. One has to remember back to when Black Lives Matter was protesting and Trump used an opportunity to tear gas to get a photo op with the Bible upside down. How prepared the government was, how prepared agencies were for Black people protesting our right to live, and yet and still we see a crowd that is vastly white, extremist domestic terrorism, openly plotting, saying bring guns. It's either now or never is one of the quotes attributed to one of the participants, and nothing was coordinated to stop an attack on our collective democracy. So yes, it was absolutely shocking to read this.
And I'm glad you actually brought up Black Lives Matter protests that happened last summer, because there were reports, better yet, I remember being on the ground and seeing an increased police presence ahead of those protesters even marching or hitting the street. From what I remember from our political legal analyst, Dr. Laura McNeil, she mentioned less than 10% actually led to any sort of violence. So can you pick up where I'm leaving off at in terms of just the stark difference between how Black Lives Matter protesters were treated and how these insurrectionists were met, better yet?
Absolutely. You can't deny the difference. You literally cannot deny the difference in one group, Black Lives Matter, protesting the life of Black folks, and these domestic extremist terrorists protesting essentially a lie and causing damage and attacking a co-equal branch of government. And honestly, when you look at the two, you have to look at it from a racial lens perspective. So many times in our society, white folks get the benefit of the doubt, and particularly those that have this unearned righteous indignation surrounding Trump. And so they literally told us what they plan to do. And I have to say we because we have a collective government, decided to think, oh, it's okay. They're not meaning that. And yet and still, we saw Black folks and Black allies bombed and tear gassed and harassed, and secret police collecting folks, and the then Attorney General Bill Barr walking out. We saw General Mark Milley out in military guard as if we were in a third world nation, and Black folks were just protesting the right to live. So you can't help but to look at this through a racial lens and really wonder and ask ourselves, if Black Lives Matter had done that and even stepped on the Capitol steps, would it have been able to go that far? Or would they have been met with the same type of resistance they were last summer? And so I think we all need to step back, look at this through a racial lens, and also look at the intelligence failures, the willful nescience around this situation.
So Quentin, I got to ask you this now. Is it really about Black or white, or is it just, this question is in regards to the January 6th commission not being able to be formed, the two parties unable to agree. Is this about two parties unable to agree, or is this about Black and white?
Now, that particularly, I think that's about a Republican Party that does not want the real truth. I read the bill to establish the commission today. It takes about 20 minutes. I urge everyone to go and read it. It is probably one of the most bipartisan pieces of legislation I've ever read. It gives both parties equal power in establishing a nonpartisan commission, and they are specifically tasked with finding out the truth. How did they organize? Did they use social media? Who incited it? Who paid for the people to get there? And gives them subpoena power. It gives the Republicans, Kevin McCarthy, and Senate Minority Leader the same amount of power as Nancy Pelosi. And so we have to look and see that the Republican Party does not want this to fully come out to light, because we've all witnessed what happened and what led up to that. I will leave that for other folks to make their determinations. But we saw the rally prior to the insurrection, and so it seems as though the Republican Party is just not wanting the full truth to come out in regards to that commission for January 6th.
Got it. Well, let's not say the full Republican Party, because we did have 7 that voted to establish the commission. Mm-hmm. Quentin Giles, political analyst, always a pleasure having you on, family. Have a good rest of your day, sir.
Thank you. All right, you too.